Hello and welcome to the Nailed On FPL podcast with John and Kris. We're back after quite a long break, umming and ahhing over our teams, but we've both had a bit of success during that time, haven't we, Kris?
Have we?
Well,
I've had some ups and downs, I'd say. You obviously did a very well, John. Do you want to tell the viewers where you are in the world at the moment?
Well, we're still in the middle of Gameweek 25, but I'm in the top 1K, which is the main thing. I think I'm ranked 500 something after a not so good week at the moment, but there's a game on at the moment, which doesn't affect me, but then I have 4 players playing tomorrow. So feels like a bit of a free roll, but the best I can really hope for is getting back to where I was. So yeah, no, it's going incredibly well. And I mean, the next few weeks coming up, that's when there's going to be a good opportunity for a tactical advantage. So we thought we better share that.
Yeah, well, there's obviously a bunch of different strategies that managers can follow. And it really comes down to what chips you've got left. I guess we should probably start with those with the wild card. So for me, I think there's probably 2 optimal times to use this. One being obviously game week 26, obviously a huge double game week. I've run the numbers for my own team. It's probably what I will be following. In fact, I've already activated the chip, so I will be following that. And then also potentially game week 30. And we'll talk about sort of dead ending the team as a potential plan as well, if you wanted to wildcard then. So I think those are probably the 2 best times to do it, aren't they? So do you want to sort of talk why they are?
Yeah, that phrase dead ending, I only learnt about it recently, but it's used a bit on Twitter. So that's building a team knowing that you're going to wild card out of it. So in other words, you build your team just with game week 29 in mind, which is the big single game week, with the idea of wild carding in 30. Some have talked about 31 as well, but you're only building your team up to that point and then you can reset. So so you want me to refer to my strategy? I missed your question before I went off on one. And I probably should address the fact I'm wearing a hat, which you've gave me a fair bit of stick for. My hair is even worse than
wearing the hat off.
I'm not taking it off. It's not worth it.
No, I was just talking about in terms of, the 2 potential optimal strategies for using the wildcard is 26 or 30 for me. So depending on how your team looks at the moment, and obviously what other chips you've got, which we can go into. But so for me, I could just talk you through what I'm going to do. So wildcarding in 26. My original plan was to bench boost in 26 and then dead end the team. So obviously bring in players as a focus for the blank game week in 29, and then wildcard in 30 with a fresh new team looking to the end of the season. But then since then we've had a bunch of injuries of Grealish, Walker-Peters, all these sorts of players that have got injured that have made it pretty difficult for me to get enough players in to make a bench boost worthwhile in 26. So I've run the numbers. So we use FPL Review as their prediction model. Highly recommended if you've not used them before.
Yeah, amazing tool for FPL managers. Huge credit to the person who runs it. Amazing tool.
Yeah, so I ran both scenarios of if I wanted to take some hits this week to bench boost and then dead end the team to 29 and then wildcard in 30. And it didn't come out as well as wildcarding now. Obviously, when you wildcard now, you've obviously got to think of a few things. You've got to think about game week 26 first and foremost. Can I get 11 doublers in my side with a strong bench as well, to cover off any injuries? Can I also get some players so I'm at least looking okay for game week 29 with obviously some planned transfers to get more than sort of 5 or 6 players playing that week, and then obviously onwards after that as well, to have a strong team to the end of the season, because you don't want to be thinking, right, I just focus on 26 and 29 and then don't have a good team after that. But obviously there's plenty of time to fix short-term problems that you may find yourself in. Obviously there's a blank in game week 33 as well, where Man City and Spurs will both blank, so you've got time to plan that in. It wouldn't put me off putting 3 City in now, put in Son and Kane in, which I have done for the double they've got. They play in 29 and they also potentially double in 32 as well, so really strong to get those players in. So that's sort of what I'm looking at. if you wanted to follow that, I'm also decided that game week 28 is probably the best time for me to bench boost, because you can get the likes of Martinez and Pickford in to bench boost, and then get 2 doubling keepers, which is really strong. So that's my current strategy. I think it turned out about 13 points predicted more over that 4 game week period, in comparison to not wildcarding now. So yeah, works for me. And John, you're going for a similar sort of
just a few comments on your strategy, because it's quite interesting, because the consensus strategy, I think, coming into this big period of double game weeks is that people generally navigate a double game week in 26, 27, 28, and then try and field as many single game week players as possible and wildcard in 30. And those that had a free hit had the luxury of free hitting 29 as well, and fielding 11, and maybe wildcarding out afterwards anyway. But what you're doing there is kind of going against the consensus strategy, which we've seen talked about the most, and wildcarding in 26, which I've seen some people wildcarded in 25, but that again was before the fixtures were confirmed, so there was more risk attached to that. Now we know they're confirmed, aside from the one in 28, but according to Ben Crellin, it looks very likely. What you've done is essentially utilize the 15 slots in your team, rotating effectively, finding a good spot for the bench boost as well. And I was quite amazed. We just did a little exercise before this call. I ran my own team. I made sure coming into 26, I was in a really strong position. I had 2 free transfers. I had 10 doublers before I made any transfers. And I thought generally I would be able to navigate the fixtures and come out pretty strong. And I think I still am in a pretty strong position compared to lots of managers. But we worked out that by Kris wildcarding, I mean, you'd be coming out with upwards of 20 extra points than me based on forecasts, the projected point totals, which I was quite surprised by. So I then need to question, well, is a wildcard actually justified for the sake of those 20 points if you go by those predicted points model? And all of a sudden, it's a very tough decision for me. So your decision, I think, is well justified with obviously the Grealish injury, and maybe, I mean, because I was able to roll a transfer, and maybe I have a couple of extra players who are better suited to this week. But the tactical advantage of wildcarding 26 is huge, because you can actually build a team to navigate those fixtures quite nicely and come out of it probably in quite a strong position. Did you look much ahead of 29 as well? Did you set yourself up for 30 plus?
Yeah, so a little bit. When I look at my team, the likes of free Man City, Son and Kane. These are really strong players that are, Man City obviously are a little bit fixture proof at the moment. Obviously, the crazy run they're on at the moment. Son and Kane are always, they've not been brilliant recently, which obviously coincides with Spurs' bad form, but they're still really strong players that, if they haven't got a brilliant fixture, it's not the end of the world. And I'm pretty happy up until sort of 33. So my team's, I've planned transfers up until game week 29. I've not gone any further than that, because, you don't want to get too ahead of yourselves because you don't know what injuries and stuff are going to come out of it. But I will have some plans in place. And I'm pretty happy with my team. And up to 33. Obviously, then there's a bit of a worry about the blank game week. But I think lots of managers will be in a similar position. Because the thing is, if you are going to wildcard in 30, can you really, oppose Man City, basically, thinking they've got a blank in 33? Do I not bring in free City? It's a hard one to make that decision, really. So I'm happy with it at the moment. And I should just say, so my original plan obviously was to bench boost in 26 and wildcard in 30. That then changed when I had some other injuries, and we weren't too sure on obviously the fixtures. Obviously, the Ben Crellin, brilliant guy to follow on Twitter, was obviously posting sort of predicted fixtures and stuff. But the ideal time for me when I heard about sort of Grealish's injury and stuff like that was to wildcard in 25 and then bench boost in 26. But it was just too much uncertainty. We didn't know the fixtures. It just didn't really make sense, because if I looked at my wildcard draft that I was making in 25, it's nowhere near as good as the one now. And that's where the importance of time and knowledge in terms of fixtures and all that stuff is so important, because you'd be doing it a bit in the dark if you had done it last week. But hopefully, if you did do it last week, your team's still in a strong position. I think there's obviously other chips to use as well, so we should just touch on some bench boost and triple captain. There's some good times to use that, and this is where you've got to sort of crunch the numbers between, which is what John's doing at the moment, where the best triple captaincy option that we can see until the end of the season, really, isn't it, is Salah this week. He's predicted the most points.
Well, yeah, according to projected points, but that would be. I think there's there's lots.
There's a good debate there, definitely.
Kane as well comes across more obvious.
Yeah, I mean, we should just say it is a good week to triple captain. If you've got that, if you haven't got the wild card, if you haven't got the bench boost, the likes of Kane, Salah, Sterling, all really good options. KDB, if you want to sort of take a gamble, obviously you don't know how much minutes he's going to get because he's only just come back from injury. But there's also other weeks though. So as I said, I'm bench boosting in 28 now, which is actually turning out better. I think it's an additional 17.5 points from the predicted model, which is quite a lot and higher than you would usually get on your average bench boost, which I think is usually around 12-13 points. So
and in terms of kind of working out the value of your bench boost, you're ultimately looking at your 4 worst players, including the second goalkeeper, and working out the value of those 4. So if your 4 worst players, you might find in just a normal single game week, actually your worst 4 are pretty strong. But if you were to bench boost in 26, 20, 27, 28, there is the option to, in 27 and 28, you could field 2 keepers, which is like a bit easier normally. Maybe not so much 20, 27. I don't want to add too much confusion there, but 28 seems like a viable strategy, Kris, and I think it's well justified. Providing out of interest, what are the worst 4 players you're planning on fielding in 28?
That's Pickford. So I will be bringing in Pickford currently in 28. So obviously he's got a double game week. Then it's pretty also good. Ben White for Brighton, which isn't great.
Who do they play?
So they play, one second. They're away to Saints. So not
bad.
Not too bad. Saints aren't in great form at the moment.
That's pretty good, actually.
Rafinha 3.21 is predicted, so not great. I mean, they're at home to Chelsea, but it's Leeds. They're sort of going to come up with. And then unpredicted, it is Son away to Arsenal, which is not too bad. He's got a good goal scoring record against Arsenal, so I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that.
I mean, put it this way, you'd be pretty annoyed that you'd be benching those 4 players in that game week. Like, I mean, if they just happen to have the team, so it's a great spot to bench boost. And I know that lots of people who have the bench boost chip are probably like tearing their hair out over, how do I get the most out of this? Because the dream is to play it when you have 15 doublers. Yeah. But unless you wildcarded in 25 when the fixtures were slightly uncertain, I think I don't know, that would have been tricky to pull off. You would have also had to factor in a team. You needed to navigate the future fixtures as well. That would have been bonkers, and you'd have had no exit strategy as well after game week 29. In other words, I like your strategy to bench boost 28. It's solid.
I think these 4-5 weeks are really key now, and I think it's important that everyone starts to plan. And because the thing is, you could easily, if you go 1 game week at a time, you might think, right, it's 27 now. Saints have got a double game week. I need to bring in Ings or McCarthy or Vestergaard or something like that. But then suddenly, that's not looking so great going into 29 and beyond that as well. Similarly for 28, if you're looking at bringing in Everton assets on that week, does that future-proof you going forward? Bringing in Everton assets now is obviously very good because they double in 26. They double hopefully in 28. We don't know that for certain yet, but it could be really strong. And then they've got okay fixtures after 30 as well. So that's the sort of thing you've got to consider, and not just take it game week by game week, because then suddenly you're going to find yourself in a struggling position going into 29, where obviously there's only how many games is there? 5 games.
Yeah, it's a very small amount. I've got to say that advice, I think, really applies to those who are wildcarding, because that's when you have the ability to actually leave players on your bench who are going to benefit from the doubles in 27 and 28, as well as the double in 26. So yeah, as you said, Kris, like if you're wildcarding, you need to be prepared to plan it out all the way through the double fixtures and beyond. Let's start looking just beyond 30. Like, you'll notice Leeds play Liverpool and Man City in 30, 31 and 32. So if you're going in with Dallas, Bamford, Rafinha, that might leave the rest of your squad in a slightly awkward position, knowing that you need to field one or two of them. It's not the cleanest, won't be the cleanest exit if you have all 3 of those.
Yeah, agree. And the only trick we've not mentioned is the free hit. So I'd be surprised if many have that left. I think most use it. Was it game week 18 or 19? I can't remember now.
Yeah, it's the consensus strategy.
Where obviously lots used it, but if you've got it, you've got to consider that as well, because that way you can ignore 29 and plan for beyond that. And take the free hit in 29 because it's a good time to do it. Definitely. So I mean, that's sort of a good summary. Do you want to add anything to that, or?
Well, I mean, the only thing to add is whether you want to hear my strategy, my conundrum, and it's pretty much the same as yours, Kris. It's it's literally do what Kris did, wildcard. The only difference is I have a triple captaincy chip, you have bench boost. So I would wildcard then with a planned transfer of Bruno to KDB in 27, which is dodging a couple of tricky fixtures for Bruno, opposing the most owned asset in the game, which could sting me. But I'm at this stage in the game, I like the idea of not kind of sitting on my rank. I want to really attack it and go for the top 100. It's within reach, and I want to make some aggressive strategies which are well justified, not just for the sake of being different, but being different and better. And I truly believe that. So yeah, the idea would be transferring in KDB for Bruno in 27, and then triple captaining him for the double. Alternatively, that would be my wildcard strategy. Alternatively, I run with my team as it's currently set up. And as discussed with Kris, mapping out all of those transfers. I mean, Kris's strategy is generally ahead by about 20 points than me, but I do have the benefit of triple captaining Salah this week, which again is a big kind of variation play because he won't be that popular. Yeah, his point potential is really high. So interesting one to look at. I'll be opposing Kane.
Yeah, I mean, I was one of the few that triple captained Salah back in 19. He got me a big 4 points.
Nice.
So, obviously not over yet. Not bitter about it at all. But obviously, it's you, John, isn't it? So he's going to probably get about
He'll score a hat trick in each game. That's what I'll be disappointed with anything less. No, we'll see. We'll see. But no, I'm pretty happy in this position. It's very hard for all managers, and the key bit of advice I think from us, if you to arrive at any conclusions, is plan ahead. Would you agree? I mean, that's it.
And you don't, we're not saying go and use predicted points models because you don't necessarily have to do that. But looking at fixtures, taking into account form and all that sort of stuff. And obviously double game weeks where players have got extra fixtures. Because if we just take, Matt Target for an example, he's got 6 games in the next 4 game weeks. I mean, there's some players that I've only got 4. A lot of players that have only got 4. So, that's huge. There's an extra 2 games in the next 4. So,
yeah, the benefits of targeting, like Villa players, just near enough essential. Not only do they double this week, so bringing in Watkins, even without Grealish, some people will be worried about how that hurts his attacking potential. There's still the fact he plays, as you said, 6 games during the period, and he plays in 29. It's near enough a dream. Obviously, the dream scenario would have been Watkins, Grealish, and then someone like Martinez or Target. Most people have Martinez, but those are the names that should be some of the first on your team sheet if you're doing a wild card or looking to make a transfer.
Yeah, and obviously we'll share our plans on Twitter, and I'll probably post up my wildcard team as it is as well. And is there any questions? Just drop them down below.
Best of luck, everyone.
Cheers, guys. See you later.